All right, class, we're back. We're back on chapter 2 for the second part of work and safety. I do advise y'all follow along in your books. So we're going to talk about how we stay kind of mentally healthy, physically healthy on the job. As far as EMS goes and stress goes, it is a very stressful job. I remember back when I first started taking EMT class and started being a ski patroller, and people told me stories about stress and the accumulation of it, how it affects you over time. I was very naive to how it really does affect people. How it affects me, I'll kind of share some of that with you all, and I'll share some stories from other people also and give you examples of some of this. I tell my students nowadays, it's like if it's not a matter of when you're going to need like some help, whether it be peer support or whether it be a therapist. It's just a matter, it's not if, it's when you're going to need it. Because if you're in this job long enough, you're going to need to like figure out a way to process some of the stuff that we see and deal with in this job. And I'll tell you all some examples that I've had over the years and some stuff I've seen out of other people. Your book does kind of break stress into delayed stress and acute stress. And I'll give you all an example of like acute stress. Like last week, I was on the ambulance and the tone went off about 3:30, 3:40 in the morning for a 30-year-old unconscious, unresponsive, not breathing. So we get up, and at this point I was having a really good dream in the middle of the night. So I woke straight up out of a dream to this loud tone, and I heard that, which obviously gets you going a little bit faster as far as putting your clothes on and getting out to the ambulance. And then en route, in the middle of the night, we hear CPR in progress, no shock advised. So the cops had got there, put on AED, was doing CPR. And at this point, you know, in my head, I was thinking we're probably going to show up at like a dead body, been dead for a while. We showed up, it was not what we found. We found a very warm body, very recently dead. She did have a cardiac rhythm on the monitor, but she had no pulse to go along with it. Pupils were fixed and dilated. And this right here, this is what we call acute stress. So you show up on a scene like that, and it's like there's so much that needs to be done so quick, and every little mistake counts, or every little thing you do right counts. And so for me, this creates acute stress for me. The biggest thing I have a challenge with this job is when I make mistakes. If I do everything right, or I feel like I did everything right, and the outcome of the patient I can live with. It's whenever I make mistakes and I start questioning, like, would that have impacted the patient? Would it have made their outcomes better if I hadn't made that mistake? Or if I could have did this better? So this is kind of this acute stress. When we talk about like delayed stress, it's like I've worked quite a few codes of being an EMS for a long time. So I've found out how to process this. And the way we kind of look at it is like, whenever you run a call, you don't run a cardiac arrest, you have to sit with a dead body. Is like you build a file in your file cabinet, and say like your brain is your file cabinet. And so the next time you see something like that, you pull out that file and you're like, okay, what did I do to process that file the first time? And it helps you to kind of move through it. So for me, seeing something like this and the delayed stress, I know how to process that. I've seen that many times. I've been there a lot of times. So Saturday, I spent a big part of that day just kind of talking through the call with other people, and Saturday night I slept pretty well. I also have some friends that saw a dead body for the first time, worked a code, and young, healthy, athletic, and they couldn't sleep the next night. That's usually one of the first things we see is like this kind of delayed stress is not sleeping. So if you run on calls, if you see something in the field, you see abuse, you see I don't know, it'd be drug abuse or any kind of abuse that usually hits people pretty hard, or death and dying, or children death and dying. Anything you see that's bothering you, if you're not sleeping, you need to start talking to somebody, whether that be your friends or whether that be your bosses, whether it be your supervisor, whether it be a therapist, whether it be a support crew. If you're not sleeping, then you need to start taking care of this and start building you a file and figuring out how to process this stuff. I know some people have like a song that kind of like helps them let go, or some kind of like thing they do that helps them let go of the incident that they're kind of mentally processing. So anyway, delayed stress, that's kind of what we're looking at as an example there. And then I kind of put acute and delayed building into cumulative stress. This is the stuff we see over time. And I tell people, for me, this cumulative stress is getting woke up in the middle of the night over and over again. I really don't think that is healthy for me. I only work part-time EMS, but that tone going off like 3 in the morning whenever you're like in REM sleep, and you go from like a very peaceful, nice sleep to like full sympathetic, what is it? I'm drawing a complete blank, but that flight syndrome. So that right there builds on me over the years, almost like dread hearing that tone, just because not of what the call, but it's more just like what it does in my body to hear that loud tone. Fight or flight, that's what I was looking for, thank you. But anyway, this stress does build over time, you all, and it will take its toll. And we'll talk about some of the stuff you may see from this cumulative stress if it's not processed. The good news to this is we don't have to be here. We can take care of this stress. We just got to learn how to do it and how to take care of ourselves. But if we don't take care of this stress, don't take care of these things that are bothering us, it will build and it'll build and it'll build over time. EMS has one of the high suicide rates of any profession out there. I don't mean for this to be a gloom or doom chapter. I want you all to know that this is, for the most part, preventable if we start approaching it early and learn about it. Not preventable for everybody, so those of y'all that have stress, don't look at it as like, or have this cumulative stress, don't look at it as like there's something wrong with me. Not everybody can process this stuff, but I want you all to learn early on and figure out a way to take care of yourselves. So if we have this stress building over time, it can build into some other things. PTSD is a term that's got kicked around a lot, mainly because of like wars, soldiers coming home. What PTSD is kind of directly tied towards is people having flashbacks, like kind of reliving events in their mind. I've never experienced this personally. I know I had a partner in Louisville, Kentucky. There was 3 of us. I was doing my paramedic ride time, and he had been in Afghanistan for 3 years, 2.5. And he came back and he was working EMS on the ambulance. And throughout that day, I was a student, so I was just kind of learning. Throughout that day, he drove down the interstate at like 60 miles an hour, swerved the car into the median, and kept driving down the grass at like 60 miles an hour and didn't even bat an eye. Throughout that day, he talked about how this wasn't the real world, and we went to his family reunion, hung out with him, and he was like, this isn't my real family is overseas, and talking about how this world really wasn't the right world. And anyway, he did a few other things. At the end of the day, he hopped a curb, drove through somebody's front yard, and I found out the next day that he got pulled on the drive home and blew really, really strong of alcohol. So I'm guessing that he was probably drunk the whole day. But he definitely talked about, like, it was almost the whole day he was kind of reliving stuff that he experienced over in Afghanistan. So whenever you start having these things where you like actually reliving events, and it could be a burning building, it could be working a code, it could be seeing some type of abuse. Like if you're reliving these, this is PTSD, and that needs to be addressed. Coming over here, burnout and compassion fatigue. I started dabbing in this a little bit. I worked inner city Knoxville, and it was very busy. We were in 70,000 calls a year. It was only 911. That's all I did. And as far as like burnout, it definitely burns you out, man. Just running call after call after call, you start questioning whether your care is actually helping people. And then, it's like you pick up more and more overtime because they need people to work. And this accumulation of just working all the time, we'll talk about a balance later on, gets you to a point where it's kind of like lack of motivation for being at work, really. Had one of our coworkers not too long ago. It was just he's currently took some time off because of struggling with burnout, just coming to work and just being like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, and not having any compassion or care walking into a scene, even though his care is like great as far as taking care of the patient. As far as like mentally, like he wasn't there to take care of the patient. So this will happen to us if we don't take care of ourselves, but this is mostly preventable also. We got some good news here. Compassion fatigue. It is hard to care for people all the time, and we need to realize whenever we're probably all going to hit a point where like we can't care for someone at that point. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to have time to build up, so we need time to take care of ourselves where we're healthy and we have something to give patients. And if we give all the time, we're going to end up with compassion failure or fatigue. And this will happen to you because you're always giving to your patients. One of the best things you can do for your patients is to sit and listen to them. Most patients that you see aren't critically dying, aren't critically injured, and they're not going to remember the care that you give them. They're going to remember how you treat them. So I tell all my students, like, the best care you can give to your patients is to have compassion for them. But it does get tiring when you do that all the time. All right, so what can we do, right? So easy, bare bones right here is stay healthy, you all. I overlooked this a lot when I was younger, but sleep, man, sleep is very important. If you're going to work at 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, get you at least 6, preferably like 8 hours of sleep. Different people are different. Some people may need 10. And exercise. All these books say like 30 minutes of exercise 3 days a week. That's crazy. If you are an EMS, you also should be exercising 5 days a week, probably an hour a day. Lifting, running, cardio, a mix of stuff. Stay fit. It's a very physical job. Eating habits. Y'all probably all know about good eating habits, but eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. If we eat a fatty diet, we're going to be more lethargic. We're not going to be as motivated. Our minds aren't going to deal as well with the stress that we've talked about. So eating well, exercising, and sleeping well is going to help us to feel better. If we feel better, body feels better, our mind's going to be better. Disease prevention, we kind of already talked about that earlier on this chapter. And then have a balance in life. That's challenging for a lot of us. I am guilty, for sure. I spent some time when I first started working in the college. I was doing like 120 hours a week at the college. I was sleeping in my office most of the time because I just felt like I had so much work to do. It's very unhealthy. I took a sabbatical last fall and came back really re-energized and felt a lot more motivated to come to the college and teach. But make sure you have a balance in life. So family, kids, whether it be your religion or whether it be your sport hobbies or whatever it may be, just make sure you're doing something besides your job. Remember, a job is not your life. Try not to tie your identity to your job, which I see a lot of people do. Okay, moving on over. I put this is in your book, Critical Incident Stress Management. In Colorado, most of us talk about a 3-3-3. So if we have some kind of big event, something stressful, then we talk about checking in with that person 3 hours after the event, 3 days after the event, then 3 months after the event to see how they're doing. That's not really spelled out in your book, but initially, like whenever someone goes through something and you want to check in on them, how are you doing from this event? Like on ski patrol, any kind of big event, we meet at the end of the day and we do like a quick little debrief that's kind of like checking acutely, how you doing with this acute stress? And then we give the ski patrollers an opportunity, and sometimes we'll check in on patients 3 days later. It's like, how you doing with this delayed stress? And then the 3 months later is like, how you doing with this stress and everything else? Is this acute stress, delayed stress affecting your family life, which is compounded on each other and building? So checking in 3 months later. Most workplaces nowadays have a system kind of designed for this, but there's almost always someone around that will help with some kind of like stress that you're having. In Steamboat, we have in Routt County, we have a Routt County Crisis Support, which is a free service for EMS workers. They do have therapists that are available for free, and they have peer support. They have a group of people that are there for you 24/7 every day of the year. So really good resource here in Routt County for that. Jumping around a little bit. Coming back over here, I guess we'll come to others. As far as coping with stress, all of us have probably, or most of us has probably used some kind of substance to cope with stress at some point in our lives. Whether it be cracking a beer, or whether it be smoking a cigarette, or whether it be hitting a vape pen, or something to deal with some kind of stress. What I'll tell you is that, if you crack a beer at the end of the day because you had a hard shift, that's cool, that's fine. If you crack your 8th beer that night because of something you're dealing with that night, that's bad, that's not good. Getting into like harder drugs, if you're taking hard drugs because you're having a tough time with stress, then you're really going down a bad and kind of dangerous path. If you're doing that to cope, then you need to be talking to someone. So kind of watch substance abuse. Alcohol is highly abused in our society and by EMS workers. As far as your book talks about having diversity at work, it is really good to have diversity. It is kind of a hard job sometimes to have diversity in culture and sexual, just because of like the nature of the job and where you're at. So anyway, I know in the first video we talked about Freedom House Ambulance and a little bit of diversity there in the culture and stuff. So it always is good to have as much diversity as we can in jobs, but sometimes it's hard, especially in rural America. Sexual harassment should have a zero tolerance at work. If you are feeling harassed by anybody, you need to say something. You need to cut it off early, because if you're getting sexually harassed at work, it's probably, the evidence would say that it's going to continue until something is said or done about it. Everybody should come to work. We should feel safe at work. We should not be harassed because of our sexual orientation or our political or our religious orientation or any of that. So what I encourage you all to do is have respect for everybody else. We're kind of in a society right now where we don't really respect other people's views in like politics, and that's trickling down to a lot of other things. But in this workplace environment, there is no space for that. You have to have respect for everybody that you're working with, everybody that you're treating, and whatever they believe, whatever they think, whatever they want to do is just as fair and equal as you. Report any kind of sexual harassment to your supervisor also. It needs to be documented. Okay, I'm going to hop over here. We'll jump to the other side. The chapters do get a little bit more light, okay? So they're not all like as sad as this one is, I should say. Some stuff that your book, you do need to know this, probably hopefully know this from EMT class. We used to call this the death and dying, now they call it the grieving process. They used to tie this with like whenever someone's loved one dies, you see these patients going through these 5 different stages. But we see this with a lot of things, right? I worked in a rehab hospital for quadriplegics and paraplegics, and you would see these patients kind of bounce back and forth between these different stages of like grieving, acceptance, whatever you want to call it. But your textbooks and the EMT test are going to want you to know like these 5 things and then examples of these. You know, it was like the last night when my patient died, her partner was there, and her partner was in the corner just rocking back and forth, being like, this has got to be a dream, this is a dream, this has got to be a dream, wake the fuck up, wake the fuck up, this has got to be a dream. And so, you know, it's like you look at this and it's like, where is he at in this grieving process, right? He's right there in the denial phase. He's like, this can't be true, this can't be real, it can't be reality. You know, it's like later on he might get angry about it, like, why me? Why is this happening to me? This is not right. I didn't do it. I don't deserve this. And it's like could we have him back? If I'd do this, I'd change my life this way. So anyway, people can bounce down to acceptance. They can bounce back to anger. You can bounce throughout this grieving process, but eventually we would like to get us and or our patients down to a place where we're in acceptance. Okay, moving on over, working with family and patients. This is definitely not my area of expertise. Even the other night, I was sitting there with the patient's partner and their friend and stuff, and they were getting really emotional. I got to the point I was like, all right, I got to step away. Like, I don't know how to work with family that well for that long. The stuff I will tell you from working with family is be honest with them. Don't give them any room to interpret whatever you say in a different way. So if like someone has died, for example, don't tell them they've passed. Don't give them false hope. You want to give them hope if there is hope, but you don't give them false hope. I like to tell my patients, like if they're asking how someone's doing, I'm like, we're doing everything we can. If your patient dies, like tell them, where you know you're very sorry, you did everything you can, but so and so is dead. Because they're not going to want to believe whatever you tell them. So it needs to have some compassion when you tell them that, but also you need to be very clear on what you're telling them. Police are really good with these people, and then when the coroner comes in, they usually have a lot of resources also. All the hospitals have a lot of, they may have a chaplain on call or something like that to come in and help the family through kind of this grieving process. Don't take this one on your own though, unless you've been trained for that. Coming over here, peer support. We talked about Routt County Crisis Support. They have a peer support group. You can get on this. People will call and check on you several times a day, maybe every hour if they need to. They'll put you on a suicide watch if you become suicidal from some of this cumulative stress. And when we talk about this, we have a really high suicide rate. We've had several people in Routt County that have attempted, or Moffat County, and or been successful in the last 10, 15 years, EMS workers. So when I tell you this, like suicide watch and things that can happen from stress, you're going to see it. Your friends are going to experience it if you don't. So you're going to be around this kind of stuff. So take care of each other. Some stuff that you might experience also from cumulative stress, acute delayed, is anxiety. Most people know what anxiety is at this point. Pain, fear, anger, depression, dependency, guilt, developing some mental health issues or dealing with their own mental health issues. What I see that some of my coworkers that this book doesn't talk about is triggers. So been on scene and something you see or something you deal with kind of brings back stuff from the past, and it doesn't necessarily have to be stuff from the past of your work. It could be stuff from your past, from your childhood, or some incident earlier on in your life. So what I'm kind of trying to tell you all for the most part is take care of each other. After any big call I run, my initial processing starts with my partner in the ambulance. I am friends with most of the people I work with, and anytime we run a call, we talk about it. We make jokes. I love humor. Humor is kind of my go-to. Some people probably look at me like I'm pretty sick making humor over death and dying and some of the things we see in the field. But that's how I process some stuff. So talking about stuff with people is really good. It's kind of the go-to for most folks. So find someone you're comfortable talking to, and I would advise y'all to have a few people that you go to talk to work through this stuff, because it's a really good way of processing. Okay, I think that's all we got for Chapter 2. The next lecture will be moving on to Chapter 3, which will be medical, legal, and ethical issues. All right.